Okay, guys, I'm doing this from home, so if you hear some dogs barking or phones ringing or something like that, I'm sorry, but we'll just keep right on moving through it. Today we're going to be talking about forgetting. The capacity to forget useless or out-of-date information is very helpful. Because of his inability to forget, the Russian memory whiz that I talked about in an earlier video, known as S, found it more difficult than others to think abstractly, meaning to generalize, to organize, or to evaluate things. Without an ability to forget, we would be overwhelmed by out-of-date and irrelevant information. And this woman, AJ, in real life, her name is Jill Price, and she told a writer her story in 2008. And she remembers every day of her life since age 14 with detailed clarity, including both the joys and the unforgotten hurts. Daniel Schachter is a psychologist that came up with the 7 deadly sins of memory, or I shouldn't say 7 deadly sins, but 7 sins of memory. And he says that you have the 3 sins of forgetting, and those are absent-mindedness, which means the inattention to details that leads to encoding failure, like your mind is elsewhere as you lay down your keys. Transience, which is storage decay over time, like after you part ways with a former classmate, unused information fades. And then blocking. And blocking is the inaccessibility of stored information, like seeing an actor in an old movie and you can feel the name on your tip of your tongue, but you have retrieval failure. You can't get the words out. Sins of distortion are misattribution, and that's confusing the source of information or putting words in someone else's mouth or remembering a dream as an actual happening. Suggestibility, which is the lingering effects of misinformation. A leading question like, did Mr. Jones touch you privately? Later will become a young child's false memory. And bias is belief-colored recollections. And these are current feelings toward a friend and how they may color your recalled initial feelings. And then the last sin is the sin of intrusion. And that's a persistence, meaning that unwanted memories can surface, and that or cannot surface. An example of this would be being haunted by sins of abuse. One explanation for forgetting is that we fail to encode information for entry into our memory system. And without effortful processing, remember we talked about that a few days ago, much of what we sense we never process or notice even. For example, most people in the United States have looked at thousands of pennies. However, when you're tested on specific features, they have difficulty recognizing the real thing. So in this question, which one of these pennies is the real thing? And the answer is actually A. And this is a graphic of the process of encoding failure. Memories may fade after storage, and from his research on learning and retention, Ebbinghaus found that forgetting occurs rapidly at first and then it levels off. And this principle became known as the forgetting curve. And storage decay may reflect a gradual fading of physical memory trace. Another possible explanation is that we simply can't retrieve the information. And here's a graphic of the Ebbinghaus curve. Retrieval failure can occur if we have too few cues to summon information from long-term memory. It may also happen when old and new information compete for retrieval. In proactive interference, something we learned in the past interferes with our ability to recall something we have recently learned. In retroactive interference, something we have recently learned interferes with something that we learned in the past. So So this is a graphic that shows the hours that have passed after you learn a certain syllable, and then the percentage of syllables recalled. And so without interfering events right here, recall is better, but after remaining awake, the recall goes down. With his concept of repression, Sigmund Freud proposed that our memories are self-censoring, and to protect our self-concepts and to minimize anxiety, we may block from consciousness painful memories. In Freud's view, this was a motivated forgetting, and he said that this submerges memories but leaves them available for later retrieval under the right conditions. And increasing numbers of memory researchers think repression rarely, if ever, actually occurs. More typically, we have trouble forgetting traumatic experiences. And that's it. Thanks, guys.